Well, thank you so much for staying with us here on Morning Live. Now, the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, or Focac, that summit is currently taking place in Beijing in China. Now, the event coincides with President Cyril Ramaphosa's first state visit to that country on a high-level delegation to strengthen economic ties. Ramaphosa has assured his counterparts that a South African government is committed to fighting corruption and also addressing economic challenges, and that the country is open for business. So to discuss this further, we join now by Professor Paul Tembe from the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute. Thanks so much for speaking to us this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
So I must say the first question that came to mind for me, just looking at this particular summit, was, is there clarity about South Africa's vision? You know, what is our strategy for dealing with China?
Our strategy for dealing with China is to end the courtship and get down to business. Now, the question is, do we have that strategy in place? As you see, you've read of the 4 agreements that were signed yesterday: the water resources, productivity, vocational schools, and transport. Now, China is always giving. It happened also in 2015. Now, if we look in terms of amount, we are running at $94 billion. Taking Limpopo alone has received $10 billion for Musina Mercado, a special economic zone. So what is happening? The problem is here at home. We need to unload the bottlenecks, which are three bottlenecks. One is what I call short-termism versus long-termism. Our policies are progressive, but they are not proclamated, they are not legislated into law. And that makes businesses and investors very, very nervous. So we have the resources from China, but we fail to implement them here at the ground. The second one is the perceived question of security and safety in South Africa. The third one, which is the most crucial one, is the lack of public awareness about Focac and BRICS. What are they really? What are these two bodies of South Africa and China, or Africa and China cooperation? Just to give a little bit of information, there are 6 to 8 measures, financial measures, and they are all housed here in South Africa, in Johannesburg. We've got CAT Fund. This is what we call for practical cooperation. We've got CAT Fund, we've got China Bank, we've got all other, we've got also the Africa Group, the Africa Center for the BRICS Bank. It's here in South Africa. But I think people are not aware of that. So these 3 bottlenecks, they must be unlocked in order for us to be able to take advantage of the possibilities that we have with China.
So you speak about China giving and giving, and
exactly.
We are on the receiving end for the most part.
Exactly.
So how does that then impact on this relationship that we are meant to have, that's supposed to be an equal partnership, as it were?
I was one of the people that were most vocal 10 years ago about China being at the helm and sort of Africa being reactive to China, as if China was bullying Africa. But now it's other way around. China has gone a long way in trying to accommodate Africa. But without criticizing our government per se, the whole of Africa seems not to respond to this new paradigm shift. There's a new world order with China coming to the center stage of the global might. That's a new world order. So our governments in Africa, they tend to read from the old book and yet wanting to eat from the new book. The irony is, when South Africa got its independence or freedom in 1994, it became a co-author of the new book. So why is it that we don't unleash the systems? Don't we unpack our systems so that we're able to unleash the capabilities of our own development? I mentioned the Mercado Musina, a special economic zone in Limpopo. We are going to have a problem. We have $10 billion to build that facility. But we've got Cougar that is not functioning to its full might. We've got Richards Bay that is not functioning. We've got one in Durban, the Durban port. It's not functioning. So why is it that we have state-of-the-art facilities, but we are not able to unleash the development that is supposed to come forth? The answer is simple.
So the question then is, doubting, this new world order, where there is clearly a shift in economic power.
Yes.
However, is there a shift in Africa's economic position in this new world order?
There is no shift. There is no shift in African, and again, is the discrepancy between the law and policy. Policy can be short-term. That's why I call it short-termism. Again, here we have a situation of, because majority of African countries have democratic governments, it's a 4-term government, or at the least, at the most, it becomes 10 years. That is very short. That is very short to turn around economic transformation. So I suggest that the party politics, short-termism policies should divorce themselves from the long-term economic national strategies. One point that I'll discuss about here is the point that we are going to be having what we call demographic bulge, whereby in 15, 20 years, Africa is going to be having the youngest people.
We're already well on our way towards that.
Some people call it demographic dividend. Excuse me. It becomes a dividend if it's educated, if it's harnessed in order to deliver final public goods. But as our kids are not going to school, as we don't have advanced human resources, so to speak, we are going to have a demographic curse. So are we planning towards that? No, we're not planning towards that, because we're stuck in the old type system of what I call second industrial revolution.
Rather depressing listening to that explanation. But Professor Tembe, South Africa has served as co-chair of Focac for 6 years now. How has that benefited us?
That has benefited us twofold. DIRCO now houses a strategic monitoring body for Focac priority projects, which I think Limpopo is one of them as well. And the agreements that have been signed now are part of that strategy, the unfolding. Now, what I hope and I'm looking towards is that in 10 years' time, that is coming, which it was very important for President Ramaphosa to go to China now, at this point, to mark his presence, to show his goodwill, because South Africa has 10 years, or at the most 15 years, to serve as the door to Africa, or the springboard to Africa. But realize that although we have those advantages of 4 ties of bilateral relations, which, by the way, have been upgraded now to become global strategic influence. Although we have those, China has all its media concerns. Its media houses are housed in China.
Okay. Prof, let's pause it there for a moment, because I want to go to news. And when we come back after the news, we will continue this conversation. It's an important one, taking into account everything that Professor Tembe is saying. And you, of course, always welcome to send us your comments as well. But let's get the latest news now.